Alright, we're back to talk about some FF7. We're here to look at some info. There's going to be some translations, or at least like one translation for sure that I'm aware of, but we're also just looking at some general info posted by Shinra Archaeology departments. Namely in regards to like Lance Bass as Sephiroth from Kingdom Hearts 1, oddly enough. Now, there was initially only going to be one that I was aware of that we're going to talk about, but when I went onto their Twitter feed today, they actually put out something else today. But I'd seen a screenshot of one of their tweets in like a Facebook group, like yesterday, I think it was. So, like, I thought it's kind of interesting that, like, that's, like, making the rounds outside of the Twitter sphere. The translation that we're going to talk about is in regards to, like, Aerith and Marlene from, like, Remake and Rebirth. And then beyond that, I don't know. Yeah, it's always, like, it depends on, like, the length of the video, how much we talk about stuff, whether or not we're going to look at some more translations. But yeah, for those of you that maybe weren't aware to this point, Lance Bass of 90s boy band NSYNC fame was actually the very first English voice for Sephiroth. Now, while that has always been kind of a funny thing to meme on, he's actually not, like, terrible. Like, for one, he doesn't even have, like, a bunch of, like, dialogue in Kingdom Hearts 1. Like, it's a bunch of, like, grunting sounds during combat, and he says a few lines, like, based on, like, some of his attacks and stuff like that. He just doesn't really talk that much. Actually, like, a few lines whenever he's, like, calling out moves like Heartless Angel, for example, that I think sound decent, like, a decent interpretation of Sephiroth. Because back then, of course, I mean, there's no voice to Sephiroth. I think we're also used to George Newbern and, obviously, in the modern day, Tyler Hoechlin. But realistically, I didn't have, like, a idea in my mind what Sephiroth sounded like. They chose Lance Bass. I don't know.
Prepare to fall. Out of my way. I tire of this. It ends here. Time to end your misery. Descend, Heartless Angel.
That video that I got from YouTube was like 12 years old. I don't know why it's so echoey, but when you're in a game, it sounds pretty good. The music going and all like the sound effects from combat, it sounds perfectly fine. I will say, though, he's comfortably in the last place. It's definitely like Lance Bass, and then it's, you know, Tyler or George, or you could do Tyler then George. I mean, I know for some people it's like sacrilegious to pretend like the newer voice cast is doing like as good or better of a job than the previous voice cast, but if you think like, you know, based on like Remake and Rebirth, and I guess Crisis Core Union as well, if you think like Tyler's doing a better job than George, I wouldn't even argue. Anyways, let's hop into it. This is the first tweet that I knew we were initially going to talk about the other day. Sephiroth VA and NSYNC band member Lance Bass says that he kind of got fired from playing Sephiroth because a lot of fans were pissed once they found out that a boy bander was voicing the hardest character in Final Fantasy.
You've done some voice acting.
Yeah, there's two things besides NSYNC that I get stopped on the street for, and it's Zoolander and the voice of Sephiroth. I kind of got fired from playing Sephiroth.
Yeah.
Because once people found out it was Lance Bass from NSYNC, a lot of the fans were just pissed. Like, why would you choose a boy bander to have the hardest character in Final Fantasy? And so, yeah, they fired me for the next version.
So I've never really like watched like, you know, NSYNC interviews, Lance Bass interviews. He's got a pretty deep voice, so I think that if he like maybe got into voice acting a little more, there's probably, you know, a universe where he could have kept voicing Sephiroth because he has a really deep voice from like just hearing him talk right there. But if you look at like his filmography, he's not like a prolific actor. He's done a good amount of stuff over the years, but not that much considering how long he's kind of been like relevant. But like in terms of video games, his only role is Sephiroth. Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 1.5. And more often than not, whenever he's like in a movie or TV show, he's playing himself. So he's just Lance Bass, right? I think if my guy would have actually like got into like voice acting a little more, I think he could have probably done some more shit. I don't know if he's got necessarily like a unique voice or not. I mean, hearing him talk, he does. He doesn't really sound like how he talks here back when he was voicing Sephiroth, but also that was like 20 fucking years ago. So he's gonna have a deeper voice now. But what I will say though, and I did mention this on Twitter too when that tweet kind of came out, this is why you complain about stuff. You know, if you go back to like the Sonic movie some years ago where they, you know, complained about the way Sonic looked and they just made him look like he does in the video games, which fixed the movie entirely. People complaining about Lance Bass as Sephiroth, whether it was deserved or not, got us George Newbern as Sephiroth, which is an absolute W. I've defended Lance Bass a little bit in this video, but I will always take George Newbern as Sephiroth over him any goddamn day. And while also I'm a massive defender of Tyler, I think he's doing a fantastic job as Sephiroth. Like it's George Newbern. Like goddamn, like he's the GOAT for me. Like he voices Superman as well, which is a common trope with like voice acting for Sephiroth for some reason. A lot of like Superman Sephiroth crossover. But, like, George Newbern is definitely number one for me. And then Tyler. And then Lance Bass, I guess, is there because he has to be. This is the additional Lance Bass Sephiroth tweet that came out today that I figured we'd also mention. Sephiroth VA and NSYNC band member Lance Bass says that he has never been able to beat Sephiroth in the first Kingdom Hearts game. And then it links to a Reddit AMA that they did like 10 goddamn years ago. So the person says, "Hi Lance, how did you end up voicing Sephiroth in the first Kingdom Hearts game? It seems like remarkable casting for a side boss with just a few in-battle quotes and grunts. Also, since it's infamously one of the hardest boss fights in gaming history, did you ever play it? Beat it. Lance says, yeah, I'm kind of badass as Sephiroth. No, I've never been able to kill my own character. He is so hard, but definitely one of the biggest surprises when I tell people I voiced Sephiroth. In fact, I think a lot of people will get upset, get taken aback that I voiced Sephiroth, but God gives you a booming bass voice, and you gotta use it. So a couple things to unpack there. First of all, is Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 1 really considered one of the hardest boss fights in gaming history? Even like 10 years ago, was that true? Because I don't think he's like that hard. He was hard for me as a kid, and then when I was like a kind of a preteen teenager, me and my friend played the game together, and we were able to beat him. I couldn't still at that point, but my friend could. He was a little bit better at video games than I was. But we were, relatively young at that time, and we're still able to beat him as, like, teenagers. And in the modern day, like, I was able to beat him relatively easy. Now, I did give it a few tries, got decently far into the fight, and then without knowing, like, attack patterns and shit, he did kind of clap my cheeks. But once you look up, like, a guide on how to fight him and, like, his phases and shit, he's really not that difficult. Like, realistically, the only thing hard about the fight is Heartless Angel, because that'll put you down to no MP and, like, 1 HP. And if you don't quickly heal yourself with, like, an elixir, he's gonna kill you. But you know he's about to do the attack, like, he'll, like, warp to another part of, like, the battlefield, and then he'll, like, say that Heartless Angel line that we played earlier in the video. And as long as you hit him with, like, a combo, it'll interrupt the attack, and he won't even do it. Everything else is pretty manageable if you're of a decent level and have some decent gear. Now, as for Lance Bass not being able to beat Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 1, I'm curious how that went. As in, like, did he actually, like, play Kingdom Hearts 1? Like, himself, from beginning all the way to the Sephiroth fight. Was he able to accomplish that by himself? Or did, like, him and somebody else play the game together? Or did somebody just, like, get to the Sephiroth fight in Kingdom Hearts 1 and, like, here's the controller, like, try to fight him? Like, I don't know what kind of level of gamer he is, if any at all. So, like, if he's, like, a casual gamer, maybe somebody that just doesn't play video games at all, like, it's very understandable that he wouldn't be able to beat the character, for sure. I do think it'd be kind of cool, though, all this time later, to see him, like, finally beat Sephiroth. Like, I don't know if he plays video games in any capacity, right, in his free time. Or if he does, like, YouTube or Twitch or anything like that, but I think it would just be kind of cool all this time later. Because it's like AMA was like a decade ago, right? If he just kind of went back to it and like kind of finally checked that box off. Kind of like I did with Kingdom Hearts very recently, because I could never beat Sephiroth as a kid. Did it this year finally. Anyways, onto a translation. As their interactions deepen, Marlene comes to trust Zack and reveals a secret between her and Aerith, the scene she briefly glimpsed when the two touched in FF7 Remake. So this I thought was really interesting because we've never been told what Marlene's seen, right? It can be inferred that she gained some level of knowledge similar to Red 13 in the Shinra building. Of course, that's obvious. We didn't ever know for sure, but according to this, she was shown, I guess when she tells Zack in Rebirth about, Sephiroth killing Aerith.
When she wakes up, a scary man is gonna kill her.
So it's pretty cool to finally have some level of confirmation of what Marlene was shown in that scene, or at least part of what she was shown. I mean, she could have been shown a bunch of other stuff too. Like Red 13 learned a ton of shit just from Aerith, like touching him for like 2 seconds, right? So there might be more that comes in the future, like with the third game. Like I guess maybe like Aerith has known for a while that she's gonna die, right? If she was like passing that knowledge on intentionally to Aerith, and that came in handy in Rebirth, where she's able to tell Zack about that. Because if Zack didn't help with like the fight at the end, right? Like if Zack wasn't there to like fight Sephiroth Reborn solo, but also fight Sephiroth Reborn alongside Cloud, like who knows, like in lore and canon and shit, if like they would have succeeded. I wonder if she like passed on any knowledge to Marlene that's going to come up within the third game as well. But I do think that'll be pretty much the video. It's already kind of lengthy. We only talked about a few things today, but we talked a lot more about Lance Bass and Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 1 than I thought we would. It's the most I've ever talked about Lance Bass in my entire fucking life. But I will say, though, separate of this, I know Otakon was this weekend, which you did a video some time ago about the devs going to be at Otakon. I think a lot of the VAs were there, too. And I think they did something yesterday, but also today. And I don't know if there's any, like, video footage of that. I don't think, like, live streamed it. I kind of looked around online. I can't really find anything. But you guys can let me know. Maybe you guys can find it for me. I would love to, like, look at, like, a Q&A, of course, if there's another one out there for us to talk about. Anyways, though, that is the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Session works in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @DaveYT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.